Christina, Universe Citizen presents New Era Religion, Episode 20, March 31st, 2022, Part 4, Zero Inflection. Continuing from Episode 3, including the last paragraph. But once it has been discovered as an integral communications tool, subsequently to awareness of the geometry of the closest packed assemblies of spheres, the generalized models make themselves known to evolutionary thinking. In turn, the contributing intellect permits its own mind's conscious awareness of the eternal patterning integrity to become common knowledge from self to others. It requires a differentiation of form, which is always special case, physical, time, size, from model, which is metaphysical, the conceptual generalization. Consciousness is the generalization. With a true democracy in mind, humans of the eternal omniscient mind, which includes everyone on Earth, could therefore easily admit that this vectorial geometry of thinking is relatively new, but that our evolution species has survived on Earth 4.5 billion years existence for 6 million years without knowing of nature's coordinate system that was discovered in the 20th century by R. Buckminster Fuller. Yet the PRJWBCS has been in existence for millenniums in many subjugating dominations of variously contrived denominational disguises. A denomination is a recognized branch of a church or religion according to Oxford University Press Dictionary, as the term denomination also applies to the face value of banknotes, coins, postage stamps as a name or designation. When humans grow so used to being misdirected by the status quo, they tend to adapt to its manifest forms. The motivations for doing what the status quos do were observed ages ago. Simply put, by latching onto the very schemes that perpetuate widespread disinformation, the ambitious controller's intention can carry over the premise into and throughout any profit-making motivation basis. The more widespread the inculcation, the more readily it is adapted to, as an accepted standard considered to be the norm, not having to produce any verifiable evidence concerning where the energy of it in generalized principle derives. The ambitious purpose is to amass the greatest number for whatever the profit motivation can get away with as a potential powerful usurpation that will find its place in the grand scheme of things. When of the PRJWBCS, such things become the hidden agendas that can operate in full swing to undermine entire nations of humans who assume the R for religion is the most trustworthy officiousness on the world stage. This occurs as the J for justice stands to gain its power as the punitive position in the PRJWBCS hierarchies. Humans become fodder and sheep in ongoing consternation of seemingly irresolute adaptations to the inherited detriments as the manifest form, having no direct access to what we are now discovering in synergetics. The conscious knowledge of synergetics may be integrally initiated by cerebration and metaphysical intellect as a function of totally different coordinated realities. This time around, we could say, of these newly born generations, evolution humans can realize that thought is systemic, and that logically the thought process can be initiated. By relevant discernment, as we learn of the always and only coexisting complementarity, geodesics, and irrelevance among a myriad list of always and only coexisting complementarities that physicists have found. Not knowing what a thought is and never learning what human thought always conceptually and definitively is confined to, system, considerability, and comprehension, we persist to discover it. The unawareness could begin to explain the seemingly never-ending criminality and dysfunctional units as family units. Those dysfunctions exist within the variously coordinated realities that in common continue to deceive the populations concerning integrity, unity, unit, and the conceptuality of systemic thoughts, metaphysical generalized conceptioning field. And yet, the integrity of it must always have been potentially essential to our 21st century humanity's longing to comprehend the invisible environment, energy systems. The single atom that occurs within the vector equilibrium as differentiated from multi-atomically without the vector equilibrium is relevant to some correlating degree of anticipatory realities. It is ours to learn that can be comprehended in everyday terms. Those energy events engage our metaphysical generalized conceptioning fields of thought more consciously the more we employ intellect along this line of reasoning. It is a mind's geodesically inspiring relevant reasoning. Since geodesic means the most economical relationship, and as metaphysical intellect recalls, the always and only coexisting complementarity, geodesics, and irrelevance. Logically, it is highly likely that metaphysical intellect, as a function of universe, can consciously integrate the conceptuality of general systems, referentially of nature's coordinate system, with all that is fundamentally coherent that pertains to life on Earth. Surely, the inherited detriments from histories of propagated ignorance that play havoc throughout the 21st century communication process stem from long-held, inadequate, informed perspectives where beliefs traditionally substitute for the verifiable proof that can satisfy awareness of the zero phase of energy. Even at that, energy per se must first be identified as a polyhedral configuration where the action-reaction resultant three-vector energy event model is a conceptuality of the proton and the neutron, Synergetics Figure 935.23. Since proton and neutron always and only coexist in nature as an essential correlation to the truth that cannot be supplanted by the untruths of cultivated beliefs. This is a logical conclusion. The human imagination's ability to formulate conceptually has been misdirected by belief schemes that have come into existence thousands of years ago to serve as a transition from ignorance to knowledge, with mainly the physical power hierarchies to perpetuate the objectives as visible structures became the authoritative visible proof. The size and shapes of those variously architectural designs as specially designated edifices impressed humans whose educated ignorance could be further exploited by seemingly best survival intentions. The survival intentions turn out to be the belief system's power hierarchies of mutual self-serving perpetuation. The further from a conceptuality of the vectorially structured geometry a mind gets, the closer to the subconscious ignorantly fearful cautionaries that perpetually encourage radical indifference to the extremes of human thought action, thought language that relies on destructive forces if need be. It always will be in lieu of conscious, knowledgeable, competent conceptualization of the generalized conceptioning field's awareness of the vector equilibrium. Potential awareness of the vector equilibrium to clarify what happens referentially to a single atom is within the vector equilibrium's inventory of closest packed spheres. Hypothetically, the single atom's proton can refer to synergetic's three-vector team's action vector as the positive tripartite, as the single atom's neutron refers to the negative action vector. The generalized conceptioning tends to satisfy clarifying associations that heretofore were in perpetual confusion, where such inquiry is sloughed off as inessential to the PRJWBCS, though schemes continue to supplant essential consciousness evolution with the misinformation that contributes to furthering hopelessness regarding what humans have been designed for as a function of metaphysical physical universe. It is to evolve and to propagate our evolution species. Surely it cannot be to perpetuate self-delusion so that a whole WHOLE lifetime makes less common sense, where the most sought-after accomplishments turn out to be less satisfying than the simple truth, awareness that one quantum of energy equals one tetrahedron, and is also the eternal patterning integrity of systemic thought's generalized conceptioning field, is so much more satisfying than all that perpetuates hopelessness, where the anticipatory mind can see no comprehensive purpose to live in contradictory realities, where being human does not equate with being happy. Unhappiness can be where the supposed authority's greatest assurance perpetuates ambitions for monetary gain, but as the questioning intellect wants always to comprehend the redeemable value respecting one's own lifetime, and what is the purpose of it, that does not eventuate in utter futility and frustrations. Beginning to comprehend the conceptuality of the single atom within the vector equilibrium as a polyhedron, a tetrahedron, the minimum thinkable sets, corresponding thought process, a mind considers this structural system of universe as the basis for imagining a whole new world. Perhaps the false premises of the inherited belief schemes are similar to fog-filled environments where there is not a glimmer of light for the state of mind that loses hope. To regain the conceptuality that historically was lost not only to science, but also to the PRJWBCS professed sufficient knowledge bases to educate each succeeding generation, a different coordinate system must come into play. How could the newest generation think to ask the PRJWBCS education authorities about the zero phase of energy when it is inherently invisible? Yet the integral value of such knowledge of the equilibrium model correlates to awareness of the most economical way of behaving relative to unity and self and universe, also inspires the human mind to value the TLBSWME, truth, love, beauty, symmetry, wisdom, maximum economy as an essential formulating basis of reality. What prevents our individual consciousness evolution from adapting our cognitive considerations to the recognition and conceptualities of the structural interpatterning principles of the eternal, omniscient, mind, yom, evolution environments? Its atomic associability behaviors are tetrahedrally accommodated, so that our individual metaphysical generalized conceptioning field of thought ought to recognize these correlations. It can be, as freedom by degree, referential to universe, is articulated throughout the universal communications process integrally to consciously coordinated thought and language. This suggests the degrees of freedom, 12 universal degrees of freedom derived from and are integrals of metaphysical generalized conceptioning fields of systemic thoughts, tetrahedra and vector equilibria in the isotropic vector matrix, a cosmic hierarchy and operational field complex. Its intertransforming spaces to spheres and spheres to spaces, where zero inflection involves the energy and synergy of omnirational universe, can become ordinary to our everyday use of language as we contribute synergetic inputs to the universal communications process. Remember, to tune into the previous parts of this multi-part podcast. Thank you.